Hey guys, how the hell are you? It is December 31st as of when I am filming this, which means it is finally an appropriate time to talk to you guys about arguably one of the only good things that has come out of this year, which is a ton of killer new music has come out. Now, there has been a lot of great new music to the point where I've had to make some serious decisions with regards to this best of list. There was some times when even that top slot was a little bit up in the air, to be perfectly frank with you. But going back and listening, I think it was kind of clear what decisions I had to make. One of the biggest decisions that I had to make is you'll notice the very first link that is in the description below, there is a second video that I am releasing literally at the exact same time as this one. This is my top 10 album list that you are watching right now. There is also a top 5 EP list that is going live as well. And the reason for that is because in the end, there was so many killer new releases that were only EPs that if I would have included them with this list, it would have muddied things up so much. So I decided, okay, you know what? I'm doing two separate lists here. That way it gives a couple of videos, it gives a couple of opportunities for you guys to check out a bunch of new releases that maybe you didn't know about that hopefully will blow your guys' minds as much as they blew mine. And that includes even the EPs, because just because they were only 3 or 4 songs long in some cases doesn't make them any less impactful. So I definitely want you guys to click that link and check out those new releases as well. But without further ado, let's just get right on into it. And the first curveball I am throwing you is this is not any longer a top 10 list. This is a top 11 list because number 11 is an album that came out right at the tail end of the year, and it was so good that I felt like it really deserved a place on the list, but at the same time, going back and re-listening to a lot of these albums that do appear on the top 10 list, it just became clear that they made more of a long-lasting impact on me than this record did, but maybe that's down to the amount of time that was needed to digest this record. So I want to take a moment and give, can we call it a number 11 or should we call it an honorable mention? You choose, but let's give a mention to an album by a one-man black metal project called Brawn. The name of the album is Pred Verima Noci, and it is a 3-song album. It is a full-length album. It is 3 songs that all of the songs are right around about 15, 16 minutes long. These 3 songs are some super epic atmospheric black metal with some great synth passages and some great build-ups. A lot of dynamic shifts in this music, as well as a nice atmospheric and kind of ethereal mix job that really lends itself to the music. Now, this is a solo project. It is the brainchild of one Andy Campbell, also known as Kriegeist, and he is a member of so many different black metal bands that it's almost ridiculous to even go to his Metal Archives page, but go for it if you want. There's a lot of great stuff you can dive into, but this is a solo project that he put out this year that just blew my mind. It's a great record, and I'd highly recommend you guys check that out, and it does bear mentioning before we go into the meat of this list. Number 10 is going to be Glare of Deliverance by the Italian symphonic death metal band known as Genus Ordinis Dei. This is a really awesome record, and truth be told, I really wanted to put it higher on the list when I first heard it, but there again, ultimately when I went back and I listened back to a lot of the other releases that are going to appear later on this list, it just didn't really have as much of an impact as those records had on me throughout the course of the year. That being said, it's an incredible record, symphonic Italian death metal, so I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking Flesh God Apocalypse, right? No, it's a little bit different. Take out the blasting death metal sections and make it all about the heavy, chunkus, breakdown-ish kind of riffs. So, like, imagine, if you will, think of like if Fear Factory or Divine Heresy, something like that, was performing symphonic death metal. And that's kind of what you got here. Sidebar 2, the vocalist has a timbre that is very, very similar to Randy from Lamb of God. And in my opinion, that kind of only elevates the music even further. It's very, very catchy as far as the riffage goes. It has an exceptional mix job too. Not a single bad song on this record. I definitely recommend you check this out. My number 9 record of the year is going to be that new record from Bring Me the Horizon, Post-Human Survival Horror. Now, this is a band that, I'll be honest, man, for about the past maybe 7-8 years has flown a little bit under my radar. Because way back when, I thought they were absolutely incredible, but then they just sort of veered off down a different path that wasn't resonating with me as much. It's not to say the music was bad, quite the contrary. It was actually rather good, it just wasn't my thing, and I didn't really feel like listening to it very much. That being said, this new record, wow, fucking fantastic. Extremely good riffage, extremely catchy songs. The guest stars are very, very appreciated as well. Like, to give you an idea, one of the highlight songs of this record is Kingslayer, which is the song that they did with Baby Metal. And everyone would be like, oh, come on, man. But no, it's fucking great. I actually really kind of like Baby Metal, to be honest with you, because it is what it is. It's fun, it's catchy, and it's still heavy. And that's kind of what they bring to this song as well, and that's kind of what Bring Me the Horizon is trying to do to this whole record. Yes, it's catchy, yes, it's heavy, and yes, it's fun as hell throughout the whole thing. And it's not just that song either. Songs like Dear Diary, Teardrops, there's a lot of great moments on this record that are super catchy. Definitely some of the best music I've heard throughout this whole year, and you know, granted, it might not be as extreme and as hardcore as some of their older stuff from back in the day. This is a band that is experimenting. They're trying to figure out their place going into the musical landscape in the coming years. And not every experiment is working, but the experiments that are working, oh, those are fantastic. Definitely check out this record. Number 8 is going to be World Domination by Demonical. Wow, what an absolutely killer record. Now, there was a lot of great old school Swedish death metal stuff that came out this year, very Boss HM2 heavy kind of stuff, and that is definitely what we've got here. This is a band, for those of you guys that don't know, that was originally formed by former members of Sentinex. Sentinex is back around now. They also came out with a killer new record this year, but didn't quite capture what I wanted from this particular sound as well as Demonical did. Another great record was the Misanthropic Breed album by Lick, but there again, when this Demonical album hit, it was game over, man. It was one of those things where I listened to it, and then I listened to it again, and then I listened to it again, and before you knew it, I realized, oh shit, I can't stop listening to this thing. There's so many great songs on this record. Right from the opener, My Kingdom Done, to songs like Victorious, Aeons of Death. This is old school Swedish death metal the way it's meant to be. It's extreme, it's super heavy. The new vocalist, Christopher, is a fucking powerhouse death metal vocalist, flat out. Just a phenomenal record. And if you love your Swedish chainsaw riffs, and if you love everything to just be as brutal and unrelenting as possible, this is a record you need to hear. Next on the list, record number 7 is going to be the new record, The Entombment of Chaos by Skeletal Remains. This is a band that I first heard opening for Vader several years ago, and I was enthralled with them back then. A killer band doing the old school death metal thing with some thrashy elements, but trying to make it their own. They're absolutely incredible musicians too, but they know when to hold back for the sake of the song as well. And that's something that they've kind of developed over time. You listen to some of their older stuff and it gets a little shred happy from time to time, seemingly a little bit out of place. These days, a lot more confined to what the song actually needs. The mix, oh my God, finally these guys have a label backing them up that is willing to help them with getting the proper mix that they deserve, because now the music is just coming to life on this. Just great songs, great vocals that very much evoke that sort of like early 90s, mid 90s death metal thing. Great solos, great blasting riffs, just a killer record. I'm putting it out there right now. Skeletal Remains is going to be one of those bands that in about 5 years' time, we're all going to be looking back on and being like, damn, this is seriously one of the best bands in the scene. They're only going to get better and better with every single release, and we need to latch on now so that we can be prepared for when they put out that perfect classic record. Because this is getting there more and more and more with every record. We need to pay attention to this band. Number 6 is a band that I kind of discovered completely by accident. This was a case of I was on a website, Fry's Electronics as a matter of fact, and I was looking for stuff for my streaming for Twitch. And I was actually looking at this stuff about like a year ago, and I came across a record on that website from a group called Streams of Blood. And while that record was an older record, it still kicked ass. It was the kind of unrelenting, just evil and sinister as fuck blasting black metal that I really go crazy for. And this new record just kind of came out of nowhere. I had no idea it was even coming out, and then all of a sudden, I think it showed up on someone's YouTube page or something, like maybe Black Metal Promotions or something, and I was like, holy shit, they came out with a new record? And don't get me wrong, I like their older stuff quite a bit. I love this newer record, Erlesung. This record is fucking great. Right from the first song, Freitag Machine, that totally sets the tone to let you know this is a group, a two-man group that just does not give a fuck. They are going to create the most extreme, aggressive, violent, hateful black metal imaginable. And when I say hateful, I don't mean in any way, shape, or form that it's affiliated with any sort of hate group. Because believe me, I look into this shit whenever I'm listening to a kick-ass new black metal band. I'm wanting to know, okay, what am I supporting? And honestly, these guys are just misanthropic as fuck, and that speaks to me on a personal level. So, very easy for me to latch onto this. This is a killer record. If you love your black metal just blasting and aggro as fuck, this is the kind of extreme metal release you need in your life. And now on to the kind of thrash metal release that I need in my life. Number 5 is Generation Antichrist by Onslaught. So I have a very serious opinion about thrash metal in this day and age, and a lot of you guys have heard it on various other videos and on Twitch streams, etc. Ooh, boy, I can't stand a lot of newer thrash stuff that's coming out because to me, they're just trying so hard to copy Death Angel. And don't get me wrong, there's worse bands they could be trying to copy. Yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I love Death Angel too, but god damn it, I want to hear something else. I want to hear something different. I want to hear something more evil, more extreme, more serious. Not this sort of whimsical stuff that keeps coming out from a lot of newer bands these days. And I also want my old school thrash metal bands to keep putting out quality material going into their golden years, so to speak. And I really hate to say it like that, but that is what it is. These are guys that have been around since the late 80s, since the mid to late 80s, actually. And now here they are still around, but this record is honestly, as classic as a band as this is my favorite record they've ever done. Super catchy songs on here. Oh my god, the new vocalist, Garrett, like, don't get me wrong, I miss Psy. I really wish Psy was still involved as well. But the new vocalist, Garrett, congrats to Nige for finding a vocalist that can really carry that torch and take this band to the next level that they need to be at going into the next decade. Because this record, just mind-blowing. Songs like Bow Down to the Clowns, that is just unrelenting, mosh-heavy thrash. Strike Fast, Strike Hard. I mean, these are mosh-heavy, headbang-heavy thrash anthems for the new millennium. For real, if you are into thrash metal even a slight amount and this release slipped under your radar, you need to check this thing out because this record just absolutely fucking destroyed. Generation Antichrist by Onslaught. Now, I hear what you're saying, but dude, a lot of stuff on this list sounds super extreme, and I get it. I understand what you're saying. You guys know that I like my stuff super melodic too, super epic as well. That's where this next one comes in. My number 4 album of the year is going to be Epitaph by Pyramaze. I have kind of loved this band since its inception. I've loved their songwriting approach. I love how they do stuff that can be taken as more traditional power metal. Like on this record, you've got the song Knights in Shining Armor, for example, which that's just a total power metal anthem through and through, right even down to the lyrics, man. But like this record is just them kind of keeping in line with what some of their more recent releases have been. They're starting to get a little bit less traditional power metal and a little bit more into this like super heavy melodic metal thing. Very, very orchestral, very atmospheric, very epic, and it's awesome. And it's through and through on this record. So many great songs. But here's what I love about this record too. Everyone is creating these awesome melodic metal masterpieces that are just kind of building up and building up to the last song, which is an epic, a super long epic that has all 3 of the band's vocalists from their history. So it's got Lance King, it's got Matt Barlow, he also of Iced Earth fame, and it's got Turya, who, God help me, I hope I pronounce his name right, who is honestly, for someone to be following up that legacy of lead vocalists and for him to be holding down his own in this band following that, more power to him, man. He's a phenomenal powerhouse of a metal vocalist, and he is on full display all over this record. And you listen to that last song, and you can definitely tell that he holds his own right up there with his predecessors in this band. Fantastic record through and through. Definitely would recommend it. Record number 3 is something that came completely out of left field for me because this is not something that I go for that much at all anymore. Very, very much not extreme at all. It is about as active rock as it gets. This is a band called Ocean Hills. They came out with a record this year called Santa Monica. Here's what's awesome about this. Okay, it's pretty much the new project of Zoltan, the former vocalist of Ignite. Remember that band? An awesome melodic hardcore band that, honestly, they were always fucking great. This is Zoltan wanting to sort of stretch his legs and stretch out his vocal cords a little bit into a kick-ass melodic active rock situation. I mean, it's not extreme in the slightest. There's not really all that much aggression on display here at all. There's a lot of balladry on here, to be honest with you. But it's that kind of awesome radio-ready rock that you either love it or hate it. I'm usually leaning towards hating it, but I know what I love. And this record, when I first heard that very first song, Budapest My Love, that came up on like a YouTube playlist or whatever, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And then I listened to the whole record, the other songs like Bound and Santa Monica. So much great rock songwriting on here. Is it for everybody? Definitely not. But for those of us that can appreciate this stuff for what it is and can appreciate quality in this genre, this is a fantastic record, and you definitely need to check it out. Now we're getting down to it. Record number 2. Oh my God, was this a serious contender for the top slot, to be honest with you. This is a situation where I've heard this band before, I've listened to this band actively, and it just didn't quite click for me in preceding years and with preceding releases. Something about this new release, Endarkenment, has finally snapped in my brain for Anal Nathrak, and God help me, I know I probably mispronounced that horribly, but wow, such an incredible, incredible record. Super catchy, yeah, it's blasting, yeah, there's black metal portions here, there's death metal portions here. If anything, it's more like a slightly more black metal version of the last couple, 2-3 Cattle Decapitation records. Super extreme, super blasting, super high energy, super aggressive, but still with plenty of catchiness. Not just from the riffs, but also from the lyrics, from the vocal melodies. There's a little bit of clean singing on here. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal record. And finally, something clicked with me to the point where now I want to go back and I want to check out all of their older material to see what I was wrong about with regards to them. And ultimately, that's what you want as a band with this sort of career. You want to keep putting out new material every so often just to get those new fans in, to have them go, what the fuck? Have I been asleep this whole time? And that is definitely how I feel listening to this new record. I really, really, really want to go back and check out the older stuff to see what the hell I've been missing. So here we are, guys. We have reached the mountaintop. We have reached the #1 slot. And before we go into what that first album is that really, really tripped my trigger this year, I just want to say thank you guys so much for toughing it out with me this year. This has been a brutal year for everybody. It's been no exception for me with all that's been going on in my life. And I really thank you guys for toughing it out and sticking by me. And also through this list too, because I know this has been kind of long-winded. But as a reminder, click the link in the video description below. There is a second video, my top EPs of the year, that I would also highly recommend you would check out, because those are going to blow your fucking mind just as much as these albums that I've been mentioning on this list. And with that, perfect segue into the #1 most mind-blowing record for me this year. I gotta give it up to Serpent Uncoiling by Sinistral King. Wow, what a record. Oh my god. So this came completely out of nowhere. Yes, I saw it on like all the lists that I check for the new releases so that I can make my playlist every week. For those of you guys that don't know, I make a new releases playlist and I'm constantly checking out new records that are coming out. This was something I added to my list, but I hadn't gotten to it yet. And then all of a sudden, I see a post come up on my Instagram from Misanthropic Art, who you guys might remember did the cover art for the Voided EP. And I was like, okay, this looks super cool. And it was the cover art for the Serpent Uncoiling record by Sinistral King. And I was like, ooh, I've got to check this out. So I immediately went to listen to it, and just completely mind-blowing. All right, the easiest way I can describe this for you is that if you guys are totally into Behemoth, a la Evangelion, The Satanist, Apostasy, Demigod, that era of Behemoth, and you want something along those lines with that bombast, with that orchestration, with that same sort of vibe of just power, but like sort of evil and sinister and just marching along. This is totally up your fucking alley. Oh man, this record was so awesome, just so incredible. Super brutal, blackened, death metal, very bombastic, not so much blasting all the way through at all. It's got more of that sort of like super powerful, super memorable riffage that you want to hear out of something like this. Just great record. Those of you guys that are wondering what the vocalist sounds like, you guys like Michael from Opeth, but you really wish he was growling, that's kind of along the lines of what we got here. And it's not even something that's just plain old unrelenting all the way through either. There's these little passages from time to time that creep up that just sort of add some dynamics, like a little piano interlude here or there, just to break it up a little bit. And it's nice. Everything flows super perfectly on this record. There's not a single bad song on it. It's only like a 5-song album, to be honest with you. It's rather short in terms of song count, but in terms of overall length, it's well over 40 minutes, and it's that kind of perfect record that just makes you hope and pray that they come out with something else as quickly as possible because you need more of it. That is literally a perfect record in my opinion, and I highly recommend you guys check that record out as well as all the other records that I talked about on this list. So with that, Thank you guys so very much for tuning in to this video and checking out my top 10, actually top 11 albums of the year. Remember, check out the top EPs of the year in that video that's in the description below. Remember to like this video, subscribe to this channel. There's tons more metal and guitar-oriented content to come. And remember, please, take what you do seriously, but do not take yourself too seriously.